Hello everyone, and it is Danny Lennon here from Elite Fitness and Performance Academy, and we're here with the final video in this 5-part series. And over the last 4 videos we've been talking about things that you can keep in mind when you are dealing with clients that seem to be unable to lose fat, or have at least stopped in their fat loss efforts. And again, these are people who are training well, eating good quality food, but then we have to go beyond that and look beyond food quality if there could be an extra issue at play. So the final thing we have to talk about is to consider intolerances or food toxins or environmental toxins that may be having an effect on someone's ability to lose body fat. And again, these tend to be underplayed a lot of the time. So most of the time they're talked about in terms of if someone has an intolerance or is exposed to some sort of environmental or food toxin, it's talked about in the realm of health and it's causing stress, and it doesn't really be looked at in terms of how it can play on someone's fat loss efforts. So first, before we go on, it's important to clarify the language we're going to use. And when we mean a food intolerance, it's very different from saying a food allergy. So for example, if someone has an allergy to peanuts, they'll have an immediate and severe response to eating a peanut, whereas an intolerance, the response to that is delayed. So it could be over a number of hours later, it could be a number of days later. That person might not even experience anything that they notice at first, and it could be just chronic exposure down the line to this food they're intolerant to may build up and cause an issue. So yesterday we looked at how, for example, if we take in something that causes intestinal permeability, so for example gluten would be a good one here, could increase intestinal permeability. Food molecules can slip through into the bloodstream, and we hit off an immune response to that and how that can be an issue. So if someone's on a good quality diet, there's probably going to be almost little to zero gluten in there, bar some accidental exposures. So if we're talking about specifically about gluten, then if someone was really sensitive to it, then it could be about going completely eliminating it. If we're talking about other foods, there are 2 ways we can go to weed out any possible food intolerances someone may have. So the first one is going with a strict elimination diet. And again, this is taking out all grains, all dairy, all eggs, nuts, seeds, anything that can cause a reaction. And typically what we're left with is basically just good quality meat and vegetables, at least for 3 to 4 weeks. Then one by one we can start reintroducing foods. What might be a better alternative is using what we have up on the screen now at the moment, and this is a very basic food reaction diary. And again, you can find these all over the place. Very easy to come up with yourself as well. Basically, we're just taking the exact same idea as someone filling out a normal food diary, so they're tracking their food, but with the time periods that they take them in, we're just going to track what their energy is like, what their mood is like, how they feel physically, what do they feel bloated, do they have any appetite, are they still craving foods after eating, and so on. And from this we can kind of work out if they are reacting to a particular sort of food. So the more we do this, if we do this over a number of days, 3 days, we can weed out if it's certain foods that are kicking off these negative feelings in them. So what sort of things do we need to be looking out for? Fatigue is a big one. So soon after eating a meal, do they feel feelings of fatigued or getting tired straight away? Do they have any bloating or gastrointestinal distress? Is there a skin breakout on the days they eat certain foods? So example, dairy is a common one. If someone has a dairy intolerance, their skin breakouts are quite common. Sleep issues, so on the nights that they after they've had a certain meal, is sleep disrupted? Are they waking up that night, or when they wake up the following morning, are they waking up without feeling refreshed? And then just mental clarity, so this kind of brain fog can come across a lot of the time if someone is intolerant to a food. So they're just some of the things to look out for. And then we also have sinus issues, which is another kind of common symptom. So these are things just to bear in mind, that try and weed out, is certain foods going to be the cause of any of these things. So food reaction diary is pretty good. Elimination diet, again, is probably the gold standard. And if we have someone that's we're really sure is going to comply, then obviously an elimination diet is the best. So like, if you can go find endless amounts of these, probably the best one is just an autoimmune paleo approach. So basically, like we said earlier, you're just left with good quality meat, vegetables, certain types of fruits, and so on. You're going to try that for 3 to 4 weeks, and then start reintroducing foods one by one. The second part, and it's probably more something we can do about in the immediate term, is detoxification. So just to recap on what we looked at yesterday, we had this diagram that kind of shows the detoxification process that goes in our liver, and there's 3 phases of detoxification. And this is the big thing to keep in mind, because most kind of commercial detoxes that you'll see, it's almost seen as a kind of a hippie kind of thing, like this detox, it doesn't really work, it doesn't really place, and then the word detox becomes associated with something that's not really going to be all that beneficial. But true detoxification is extremely important for fat loss. So don't get mistaken between true detoxification and then what we commonly hear, these detox diets that people see, a 7-day detox. So what is the actual detoxification process going on in the liver? There's 3 phases. The first phase is when we take toxins that are fat soluble and we convert them into water soluble forms, because we need them to be water soluble so we can excrete them out later on in the process. So the first phase is moving those toxins from fat soluble to water soluble. In that first phase, we create a lot of free radicals. So these can cause oxidative damage, as we saw in a previous video. So if we have a lot of these free radicals caused in phase 1, the job then in phase 2 is to neutralize a lot of these, to stop them being problematic. So that's our phase 2. And then phase 3 is just the actual excretion of these toxins. And we have to try and support all 3 of these phases. Now, why because there's 2 main issues that I'm going to talk about in relation to detoxification. First of all, the first thing we have to bear in mind is something called methylation. And we don't have to dig down too deep into the science here. Basically, we're just adding something called a methyl group onto cysteine in a DNA chain. But what's going on is that without methylation, there's certain processes and enzymatic reactions in the body that can't take place. And without that, that's going to hamper fat loss, as we'll see later on. So with the second thing to bear in mind with detoxification is glutathione status. So a lot of the time people can have lowered levels of glutathione, which is a really key antioxidant. So it's going to play a massive role in that second phase of detoxification. So what can we do about each of these? If we support the 2 of these things, then we can support detoxification, we can keep the liver running optimally, and then we can keep all the things we looked at in the previous video to do with the liver. We saw, for example, if there's impaired liver function, we'll get reduced conversion of T4 to T3. That means we'll get lowering of the metabolism, and then fat loss will be hampered. So if we support the 2 of these things, we can keep the liver healthy. So with methylation, what we can do? Vitamin B12 status has to be up, because vitamin B12 is a cofactor in the methylation cycle. Similarly, vitamin B6, and then also another one of our B vitamins, folate. So these are the 3 keys to methylation, and lots of people are actually deficient in these key vitamins. So there's a couple of ways we can go, try and support them with like good quality sources. So if someone is not eating a lot of red meat, this would be a good place to bring that in. But really, the best and quickest way to support this is probably just through a good quality supplement. So we can go to a B complex supplement that is high quality, or a multivitamin that has sufficient levels of B6, 12 and folate in them. Glutathione, there's a few things we can do to support glutathione production. The first one is eating of sulfur-rich foods. So things like onions and garlic would be good choices here to add in to the diet. Raw dairy, so things like raw cheese, raw natural yogurt, maybe some raw milk if it's tolerated. Whey protein is a really good way to increase glutathione. supplement with alpha lipoic acid. So this is a really interesting supplement, and it's really become a lot more popular in recent times, and this can be very beneficial for increasing insulin sensitivity, but also for increasing glutathione production. And then finally, selenium. This is a really important one because so many people are failing to get enough selenium in the diet. So typically you can do this by getting high foods that are high in selenium. So for example, Brazil nuts are a pretty good choice if you're having a handful of those a day. But other than that, I would get most people to supplement with maybe about 200 micrograms of selenium per day. On top of that, if someone wants to go the direct route and kind of we're avoiding all these things, another thing you can also get glutathione supplements. So there's Now Foods is quite a reputable brand. They do a glutathione supplement which also contains alpha lipoic acid, which we mentioned, and also milk thistle extract, which also supports that phase 2 of the liver detoxification. So that's a brief overview of detoxification and intolerance, and obviously there are two areas that are absolutely huge and we could spend a whole lot of time, but we just can't get through on these videos. So hopefully they've just maybe piqued your curiosity on these ideas, got you thinking about how there's so many underlying issues with fat loss that just simply food quality does not account for. So one thing we wanted to announce here at the end of these final few videos is something we're really excited about here at Elite Fitness and Performance Academy, and we will be putting on a 2-day nutrition course that's looking at all these advanced areas. So we are going on the basis that you're doing the basics in terms of getting your clients on good quality nutritious foods. They're doing that consistently, they're training well, and then you're maybe looking for what extra you can do with those clients that still have reached a point where they're just stuck. So really what we're accounting for is not those 80% of clients that you're going to get great results with by getting them to focus on their nutrition and getting them training and getting them sleeping right. What we want to do is take those 15-20% of your clients that just haven't got the optimal result yet, and there's just something going on. So we want to get people away from saying, oh, it's simply a fat loss plateau and just hoping that things get better. What we want is to have the knowledge and different strategies that you can actually take away, start using with these 20% of clients that have reached a sticking point, so that you can get a lot more of them getting optimal results, shall we say. So really what the course is going to do, it's going to look beyond food quality. So in other areas we will be talking about food quality and what is the best way to design a diet for someone and what should be included and what shouldn't. We're going on the presumption that that's already in place with someone, and we want to go, once you have them eating the best quality food, where can you go from there if fat loss stops? And it's really this whole idea of fat loss resistance, and it's kind of a term that is easy for people to say, okay, I just can't lose weight, or I've reached a point where I just can't lose anymore. And if we're not able to come back to that person and give them a reason why or a strategy how they can change it, then we're not really helping that person as much as we could be. So the main focus is to get you from a 75 to 80% success rate with your client base and push it up toward 95 or closer to 100% success rate. And the way we do that is to take those 20% of people that aren't getting their very optimal results despite eating well, and just being able to incorporate these different strategies that we're going to talk about on this 2-day course to get those results up higher. So keep an eye for the link to the course, and just get in touch if you do have any questions on it.